Good evening and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Common Council of the City of Hartford. All proper notices were sent. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask if you'd please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, Shannon.
The mayor and all alderpersons are present.
Thank you. We have before us the unanimous consent agenda for approval.
Move to approve.
President Rusniak, second by Alderperson Carroll.
Motion by Alderperson Rusniak, seconded by Alderperson Carroll, approving the Common Council minutes of June 13th, 2023.
Thank you very much. Any corrections, additions, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Communication, Shanna.
So we received 19 transient merchant license applications on behalf of Aptive Environmental to sell pest control services, and they're appearing via Zoom.
Okay.
Do you see anybody?
I see a gentleman. Yes, I do. If you'd like to state your name and your company, please.
My name is Bridger Allman, and the company is Aptive Environmental.
Wonderful, thank you. And you're applying for the transient merchants license, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Normally, we don't have a vote on this, but anybody who wishes to ask this gentleman questions, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, President Rusniak.
What is Aptive Environmental? What do you sell? What do you do?
We are a pest control company located in New Berlin, and we do pest control services, treatments for ants, ticks, mosquitoes, rodents like mice, those types of services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is this something we have it under discussion and consideration, which normally would or do a vote. Normally, they just appear and then they can pick up their license.
Tomorrow afternoon in the administration office of City Hall. Everything will be ready for pickup.
Great.
Does that work? Okay, the only thing you have to do now is to watch the rest of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Good.
Okay, at this time, we have appearances and citizen comments. Anybody wishing to address the council from the city, more than welcome to come up, state your name and address. You get 3 glorious minutes. Anybody wishing to address the council? Anybody wishing to address the council? Hearing none, mayor's report. You know what? We're going to just keep moving because we want to try and get this one done quickly. Here, aldermanic requests. Alderperson Rusniak.
Nothing tonight, sir?
Love to hear it. Alderperson Carroll.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderperson Reagan.
Nothing tonight.
Alderperson Garza.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderperson Turchi.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderperson Webb.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderperson Kohler.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Alderperson Savage.
Nothing, Mayor.
Alderperson Fulop.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Oh, I love all of you. Public hearings. We have a bid special assessment. I'd like to open the hearing and ask, please, for a reading of the notice.
City of Hartford Notice of Public Hearing, Assessments for Hartford Business Improvement District. Please take notice that the Common Council of the City of Hartford, Washington, Dodge Counties, Wisconsin, will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. or thereafter on Tuesday, June 27th, 2023, in the Common Council Chambers of Hartford City Hall, 109 North Main Street, for the purpose of levying special assessments under Sections 66.0703 and 66.1109 Wisconsin statutes to finance expenditures for the Business Improvement District, the 2023 bid operating plan and budget, as well as a map of the boundaries of the district, are on file in the city clerk's office on the second floor of City Hall and may be inspected Monday through Friday between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. The proposed assessments at $3 per $1,000 assessed value of improvements were distributed in a mailing to affected property owners. The purpose of said public hearing is to hear those persons who wish to comment for or against the special assessments to finance expenditures for the Business Improvement District dated the 16th day of June, 2023. Shanna Crawcamp, City Clerk, City of Hartford. It was published June 17th, 2023 in the Daily News, and notice was mailed to 62 property owners on June 17th, 2023.
Thank you very much. Explanation of hearing by staff. Are you going to be taking that? We have with us Steve Volkert, City Administrator.
Yeah, so on an annual basis, the bid has to go through this process of a special assessment to, again, get their funding for their following year. And so they have to present that to the city council and give everyone an opportunity to speak before the council regarding this final vote. So nothing new in this year.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will have appearances for anybody wishing to appear for the special assessment. Please come to the podium. You have 3 glorious minutes. Anybody wishing to appear for? Anybody for? Hearing none, appearances against. Anybody wishing to appear against the bid special assessment? Anybody to appear against? Anybody against third call? Hearing none, discussion by council. This is pretty much a perfunctory annual vote that we do to set up the funding for our Business Improvement District. Seeing none, I'll close the hearing and ask for action on on resolution number 3649, a final resolution for the levying and collecting of Business Improvement District special assessments. Move to approve.
Move to approve.
Alderperson Carroll, second by Alderperson Garza.
Motion by Alderperson Carroll, seconded by Alderperson Garza for the adoption of proposed resolution number 3649.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 10, Standing Committee Reports, Finance and Personnel, Chairperson Rusniak.
2 items tonight. Number 1, discussion and consideration approving Class A, Class B, and Class C fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor licenses for the period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Shanna, pretty standard operating procedure here.
Yes,
We've had no problems with licenses.
correct.
Finance and Personnel discussed this several weeks ago and recommended approval. So before I turn this over to the mayor, if there's no other questions, Tina Savage will be abstaining on the vote for the Hartford Hotel Group. Dennis will be abstaining on the vote for the Hartford Historic Preservation Committee. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'll ask our City Attorney, Ian Proust, would you recommend, with the announcement of those 2 abstentions on those 2 items, can we do it as a block, or would you prefer 3 votes? I think that's fine to do it as a block. Okay, then we'll do it as a block. Super. For the Class A, B, and C fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor licenses from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, would look for a motion to approve. We have Alderperson Turchi, second by Alderperson Fulop.
Motion by Alderperson Turchi, seconded by Alderperson Fulop, approving Class A, Class B, and Class C fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor licenses for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Right, with the noted exception for Alderperson Savage and Alderperson Regan, for those 2 items only, which would be the
Hartford Hotel
Hartford
Group.
Hotel Group.
Hartford Hotel, correct, thank you, and the Historical Society.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried, thank you. Chairperson Rusniak.
Item 2, discussion and consideration approving cigarette and tobacco and weights and measures license for the period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Shanna, same thing, standard operating procedure.
Yes.
Questions, comments? Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Would look for a motion. Alderperson Turchi, second Alderperson Savage.
Motion by Alderperson Turchi, seconded by Alderperson Savage, approving the cigarette and tobacco and weights and measures licenses for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Now we have Public Works Chairperson Fulop.
So we have a proposal here to change direction on a particular capital asset for a pusher blade for $263,000. Executive summary was attached, and our Public Works lead will take the description and go through it. Thank you.
It's a little bit more than a pusher blade. It's also for a loader.
Also, the thing behind the pusher blade.
A new loader and a pusher blade it's a separate item to purchase. But again, we're changing something. Dump trucks, plows, and wings are getting very hard to come by. It's not the plow and wing, it's the dump truck and the chassis. So we've been talking about it as a group, as the Public Works Garage, and we're recommending that we'd like to take one of the 3 dump trucks that I have in the budget for the next 3 years, because we can't get them. The one we had scheduled for this year will be next year, and the one we had scheduled for next year is gonna be 2 years after that. It's just getting really hard. They have new improved pusher blades now. It's not just a box pusher. It turns into a V-plow. It turns into anything you want. It will help speed up the time for cul-de-sacs, parking lots, quite a few things. There is a downfall, as I explained earlier, that we do not have a salter yet that goes on the back of a loader. So a lot of times, once we're done plowing, and that we might have to go back and salt some of these areas that we do use with the plow and wing. We do have 2 other ones already in inventory, and we use them quite extensively. But a plow, dump truck plow and a wing, it probably takes a half an hour to plow a cul-de-sac. A loader, you can probably have it done in 5 minutes. It just really cuts the time, speed. We'll use this for leaf pickup. We use it for brush pickup. We use these loaders quite extensively, and I'm just looking to change this year's dump truck plow and a wing to a loader with a box pusher.
So you're saying it's a trans blade, is what you're saying?
It really is. It's
Transformer.
just amazing. We were down at Waukesha and we looked at theirs, and all the operators don't want to plow anymore with the dump trucks and plows. They want these loaders. Visibility, be able to see, and the amount of stuff you can push. It's a whole new thing that everybody's going to, and I hope we can too.
Super.
So everybody on the Public Works Committee voted unanimously. We also suggest we call it Optimus Prime, given its flexibility. So back to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much for moving forward for the wheel loader with a pusher blade at a cost not to exceed $263,000. Motion by Alderperson Fulop, second by Alderperson Kohler.
Motion by Alderperson Fulop, seconded by Alderperson Kohler, authorizing the appropriate city officials to bid out a wheel loader with a pusher blade at a total cost not to exceed $263,000, with the understanding that it will be brought back to council if the cost exceeds $263,000.
Thank you. Was there any other questions? Go ahead, please, Chairman.
Darrell, we get 25 years out of our dump trucks. Will you get 25 years out of this loader?
Yeah, we would. The hard part is the salt on anything for 25 years. We've actually started last year, or 2 years ago already, spraying down that, even like the fire departments are actually spraying undercarriage of theirs. So we're trying to get these more rust-free. But the resale in 25 years on a loader is gonna be a lot more than a dump truck plowing a wing. So there's advantage there, but if the trucks keep getting harder and harder to get, I can't say that down the road that a loader is gonna bring more, but again, yes.
Okay.
Chairperson Fulop.
Yeah, thank you. Darrell, that's what I wanted to say, that just to reiterate the resale value that you mentioned in the previous meeting. So again, I think a more solid investment from my perspective. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Darrell.
My understanding is any dollar amount that would be required over 25 years is tied to Darrell's pension. So.
If I'm alive yet.
Any other questions, comments? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Sounds great. No ordinances. We go directly then to the city administrator's report, except for the resolution in support of Washington County sharing. I was going to glide right over that. Sharing 20% of the state sales tax revenue annually and equitably with municipalities. We have before us our city attorney, Ian Proust. I'm
I'm
sorry?
here for something else.
Oh, you're here for something else? Yeah. Oh.
The next item on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Well, then, we will go with our city administrator, Steve Volker.
So I'll read the whole resolution just so everyone understands what we're talking about. Whereas only Wisconsin counties, non-individual municipalities, have the authority to collect local sales tax, and in accordance to Wisconsin statutes 77.76 subpart 3, counties are authorized to share all or a portion of sales tax revenues with municipalities within their boundaries. And whereas in 2010, Washington County started collecting 0.5% sales tax revenue at $8.6 million and currently retains 100% of those revenues. And whereas the growth in sales tax revenue has been sustainable and sufficient, with Washington County projected more than $17.2 million in 2023, a 6% increase over 2022, and this growth is on trend with a trend with a $13.3 million received in 2020, $15 million in 2021, and $16.2 million in 2022. And whereas the need for local road improvement projects is greater than ever, and yet the cost of such projects is higher than ever. And whereas in 2017 and 2019, former top elected officials throughout Washington County convened a group of town, city, and village leaders to formally request that Washington County share sales tax revenues to help fund local road improvement projects. And whereas in 2023, the Mid-Moraine Municipal Association led a countywide charge for towns, cities, and villages to include an advisory referendum question on the spring election ballot requesting that Washington County share sales tax revenue to help fund local road improvement projects. And whereas during the spring election in April 4th, 2023, electors in 15 Washington County municipalities, representing 85.9% of all electors, including the city of Hartford, voted on the following advisory referendum. Washington County currently imposes a 0.5% sales tax throughout the county, and none of these dollars are shared with the local municipalities. Municipalities are putting forth a proposal to the county for sharing sales tax revenue. Would you support an agreement where the county would annually share 20% of the revenues with the cities, villages, and towns to apply to local road maintenance and construction? And whereas on that same date, Washington County electors made their voices heard loud and clear at the spring election with an overwhelming 76.76 or 32,219 of voters across 15 municipalities, with the highest percentage in support of the referendum coming right here from the city of Hartford. The voters were nearly 83% for, and that equates to 3,761. And whereas in Washington County, if Washington County shares 20% of the sales tax revenue, which equates to $3,243,442, that would be shared annually and equitably with the cities, villages, and towns for local road maintenance and construction, and based on 2022 population data and equalized values, $325,193 would be allocated to the city of Hartford. Whereas Washington County is currently preparing its 24-25 biennial budget, and 32,219 constituents, otherwise 76.76%, strongly directed 20% of the sales tax revenues shall be allocated to local municipalities. Now therefore be resolved, the Common Council of the City of Hartford, Washington County, Wisconsin, do hereby formally request that Washington County share 20% of the sales tax revenues annually and equitably to municipalities to be used for local road improvement projects. Be it further resolved that this formal request of the Common Council calls for immediate action by Washington County to be included in the 24-25 biennial budget. So again, we've gone through this path now. Originally, this council approved the question on the April ballot. That April ballot, again, came back with over 80% of the residents in Hartford saying yes, they agree that they should be sharing, again, just 1/10 of 1 cent, with the towns, villages, and cities. Again, would equate to $325,000 plus for the city of Hartford that can be put towards roads. Just an example of what $325,000 is. It's in a project like we did just somewhat finish up, that's on South Main Street. That'd be about 1/3 of that project, because it's about $1 million project for South Main. So again, this is going to hopefully help do a lot of good for our streets and alleyways. And we're talking about the whole concept of adding alleyways to our construction projects in the coming years. So this would help greatly just to handle that within 1 year for at least 6 alleyways, because the cost is about $50,000 per alleyway. So it would be a great help to the community, and what we're doing here tonight is just passing a resolution asking them to act immediately to put us a part of the 24-25 budget. The city of West Bend has already approved a very similar resolution.
And my recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when the language for this, when we moved forward, was passed to put it on as a referendum, it was passed unanimously by the Common Council, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just so, okay. Any questions, any discussion? Very thorough. Obviously, I'm sure everybody had a chance to read it. It was just read to us. So at this time, I would entertain any questions to Steve. If not, I would look for a motion to approve. Go ahead, Tony.
It's just a simple question. It says here it's for road improvements. Is it specifically just only for roads, the funding?
Under the question of the resolution, it was for roads, public roads. In reality, the city of Hartford has reasonably decent roads, but you've been on the tour before, Tony. You know that there are several roads that are absolutely gravel right now.
Oh, yeah.
And we do not have the funding to be able to keep up with all of those,
Okay.
especially when you're talking infrastructure below.
Yeah, the only reason why I ask is in the executive summary, it talks about improvement infrastructure like roads, which is a little bit different wording than what we have in the actual
Don't you like
resolution.
roads?
So I just wanted to be
Yep.
sure that it's specifically for roads, not other
You bet.
things.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Still looking for a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Alderperson Phillips, second by Alderperson Savage.
Motion by Alderperson Fulop, seconded by Alderperson Savage for the adoption of proposed resolution number 3645.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we go down to the city administrator's report. With that, Steve Volkert.
I believe the first item on the agenda under my report is the quarterly financial report, correct?
Correct.
All right. Anyways, the first quarter summary showed that the city was at 21.37% of the total general fund revenues at the end of the current first quarter. This is about 6% lower than the average of the prior 5 years. And the largest area of the lower revenues is general property taxes. So what that means is more people paid the property tax at the end of 2022 than they had to pay, thus they didn't have to pay as much in 2023. So if we look back on 2022, the fourth quarter obviously was probably a very good one because, again, more tax revenue was coming in that. I think it also, just kind of an interesting, I'm a numbers geek, so I also think it's kind of interesting, it talks about the economy too, is that more people had the money to pay in the fourth quarter of 2022 than having to wait till the last second in 2023. The other thing along with that is, and that by itself was $675,000 transfer that was in 22 versus 23. Building permits slower in the first quarter for 2023, but we do see that picking up now with more building permits. And brush pickup transfer which was a different situation, but again, that was down $9,000. Total general fund expenses for the current year is at 21%. That's about 2% lower than average the last 5 years. It's a good start for 2023. Again, we want to, the good thing about that is we know that we're paying higher prices right now for everything. Gasoline and everything else that goes with it, that of our normal operating costs. So the fact that we're only at 21%, I think is a good situation. As always, again, between the difference between the two numbers, $40,000 to the good, more revenues than expenses. But again, we continually look at these things on a monthly basis, and each department head is made aware of it and is made sure to notice when they're having issues within their budget. So that is the financial report, and you also got a copy of the spreadsheet that kind of breaks down the last 6 years. Any questions on that? None. The next item on the agenda is discussion and consideration of adopting the property maintenance enforcement procedure policy. And this is what our city attorney, Ian Proust, is here to talk more about. And he will take you through line by line, word by word. Just kidding.
So the property maintenance enforcement procedure in front of you is something we were discussing before Justin left. It kind of got backburnered as Justin left and we had Jacob coming in. This is largely based on something Jacob had drafted previously, adapted from Menominee Falls and Watertown, and kind of tweaked to match the city of Hartford more closely. Goal behind this is, A, to set expectations for what property maintenance, what the property maintenance goals are for the city. Is it enforcement? Is it, compliance? Is it trying to bring the hammer down on the people who are the problems? There needs to be some guidance so that everybody's on the same page about where we're going with this. The other part of this is it's kind of protection for everybody all around. It sets the general goals for staff, so we know where we should be going with property maintenance. It means that if an elected official, a city administrator, members of the general public start coming forward once the property maintenance complaint process is started, you can point to it and the staff can point to it and say, we're doing what we were told to do. This is going to take time because we're in the process. And so the intent there is to make sure that we don't have people coming to the counter every day and complaining about the same thing, which doesn't help anybody. It just wastes time and makes it harder to get all of these jobs done. So this is kind of intended to insulate against that because now staff can point to the actual policy.
How is this going to be dispersed so everybody knows? I mean, are we going to put maybe a link on the front page of our website? Are we going to put it in different areas? Are we going to do any kind of a publication that would actually go in? Are we going to publish it in the newspaper? I don't, as fact, it's how
I think
big-
it's something that would be pointed to when people file complaints. So you send forward a complaint, and Steve can speak to how they would publish it as well. But, specifically, I would say when somebody files a complaint, a copy of it sent forward and said, okay, here, thank you, these are the procedures we follow. That way, everybody's on the same page and it's knowledgeable. Realistically, I would say half the problem is the same frequent flyers, and now we can point to it and say, please stop. We're dealing with this under the procedures set forth by council, which is going to make it a lot more functional for the people who are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis like we
Okay,
are.
I can understand that, but it's like asking, people telling, well, this person was speeding. Well, how do you know that they were speeding? We don't have any signs up, okay?
Yeah.
I'm looking to put a sign up. The sign, even if it's just a big button on the front page right away when you pull on our website that says, hey, having problems with, and then spell it out with property maintenance from a neighbor, somebody across the street or something, point to that, let them know that there are procedures that are followed. And so not only does the person maybe making a complaint, but they could tell the neighbor, hey, look, this is a pigsty, however they want to talk with their neighbors. Go look and see what it is, so you know what's going to happen. And literally have a self-policing that would be available, because what we're going to do is going to move forward and everybody would have easy access to it instead of waiting for somebody to complain and then pulling it out.
So we don't want to invite the neighborhood enforcement officials to appoint themselves. So, I want to caution there because, we did have discussions about the current property maintenance code where it says we need 2 complaints or, the city staff can act on their own volition, but that there's no real obligation to investigate until we receive 2 complaints, because that invites the neighborhood busybody to go around and find every single ticky-tacky little complaint, which we don't have staff to enforce.
And I absolutely agree with you. What I'm trying to do is just get out what the rules are first,
Yep.
just like a speed limit sign. They're all over the place. I just, if people have an idea of what is untoward when it comes, and you are correct, it would be a common thing. If your grass is 1.5 feet tall, yeah, you probably got a problem. But,
I mean, the code is freely available online. And I realize that's, I realize that you're saying, oh my gosh, somebody's gonna go read the code, but unlike a speed limit where we can point to one specific thing and say 45 or 25, a lot of these property maintenance enforcement issues are much more complex than 25 miles per hour.
Understood.
So it does come down to, is this a problem? Nope, that's allowed under the code, it's not even an issue. I think Steve would back up that people don't have any problems figuring out how to complain about things.
well, I'm not asking to do,
Yeah.
not as much go as teach people how to complain, but teach people how to, maybe in a simpler bullet point type thing, what is acceptable and what isn't. So people who have questions, so they're not in violation, would have an access to it, not necessarily those, like you're saying, the nanny types.
Well, and we certainly do have that for certain areas. We have that for fences. We have that for some boundary line dispute things. So the frequently asked questions, I think we do have
Okay,
publications for. I understand what you're saying. I just
Yes.
don't know how, with something as complex as zoning and building and maintenance, that it's.
just maybe, again, something more of a bullet point type thing, where here's the top 10 or top 12 things
Yeah.
that we get complaints about. Grass can't be over 8 inches. This,
Yep.
your sidewalk can't have more than a half an inch or an inch or whatever of things, so you don't kill, somebody doesn't
Yep.
kill. Just those things, put them in a bullet point type thing and make it such. What are the common type things, so people can look and they would understand that, hey, are you in violation of any of these?
Yep.
You might want to check it out, type of thing. That's all. I'll shut up. I think
Yep.
I've got my point.
So just walking through the procedures here. So one thing I want to note that we tried to make clear is this is not creating a duty. This is an advisory policy adopted by council. These are aspirational goals, staffing issues. Mike Hedrick has been on vacation for the last couple of weeks. If somebody had complained the day before he leaves on vacation, some of these goals may not be met just because we have the fill-in building inspector. We're not going to be asking him to go out and do property maintenance necessarily. So these are aspirational goals. The other reason for that is we don't want to create liability. So we don't want to create a duty that you didn't inspect within the 15 days that you said you shall inspect within 15 days and my kid got hurt. We're not creating duties in that sense. These are aspirational goals, they're guidance. First things first, if there's an immediate hazard, it's going to be referred immediately to department head and city attorney to see if it's a raise order, if there's an immediate need to correct something because of an immediate health and safety issue. Outside of that, just like the current code, it's the 2 complaint, or of course, if we get a complaint and staff goes out, and inspects and it's an issue, we can take, essentially take action of our own volition. The goal is to have the initial visual inspection within 15 days of the complaint. If there's a violation, then there would be an order to correct that gets issued. We have some guidelines here that kind of set general timelines for this. 15 days for anything, but then, up to 30 days for garbage and rubbish issues, 45 for an exterior violation, and then up to 90 days for a zoning violation, which would generally be a use violation or some type of, setback type of thing. With the caveat that obviously you can't paint in the middle of the winter, so if it's peeling paint, that's gonna have to be a order to correct within 45 days of spring. Yes, Wayne?
Ian, where do junk cars come into play on this? We get a few complaints on junk cars.
So this is going to primarily be, primarily zoning, building inspection. So if we're talking, junk cars kept in the yard, that would be a use issue. If it's people parking on the lawn, that's going to be a little bit
It's usually in
different.
the backyard, an old junk
Yep.
car, no license plates, that
Yep.
type of thing.
So that's going to be a use issue, that's going to be a zoning issue, that's likely going to fall under garbage and rubbish or a zoning violation, depending
Okay,
on
so
what
it
it
is
is.
covered.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sure.
And again, if it's 2 feet of snow on the ground, obviously, we got to take that into account for enforcement.
Go ahead, please.
Yep.
Yeah. So we have ordinances that control what Alderperson Rosniak had said with cars in the backyard, everything else. What is this document solving? Is it like saving us for future litigation that we have this documented? Or what problem are we trying to solve? Because we've got a set of ordinances that clearly specify, noise ordinances. We did one for the dog and the chickens and everything else. What does this actually do for us? I'm trying to wrap my brain around it because we've got an ordinance for each one of these violations. And then my second question to that is, Steve, do we get a lot of this where there's a problem with variances that you guys are solving all the time for new construction and things like that? So I guess, Ian, let's focus on the first one.
So the issue this is trying to solve is the code says what a violation is. The code says, what we can charge for enforcement and what we can do. It doesn't say how fast we should do it, what the general goals. For a long, long, long time, the goal was to get compliance.
Got it. So this is
Go
giving.
bend over backwards to get compliance on these issues. But I think the tide is shifting a little bit because we have some problem children out there who are, the work to get compliance is no longer working.
Got it. So this is a procedural element that says this is what you got to follow, this is the
Correct.
guidance, this is what we document.
Correct.
Got it. And
So
then-
this is like the police department's internal policy that says, hey, in general, we want to have speeding tickets when somebody is X miles an hour over. It's not a hard and fast guideline. Clearly, if somebody is driving unsafely, you can issue a ticket at 2 miles per hour over the speed limit. But this is generally where we're shooting for enforcement. That's what we're trying to do here.
Got it. And Steve, what's the pain on this right now for the city normally?
Oh, I mean, every year we have the same individuals who we have to address for the same issues every year. Junk vehicles, mentioned before, not cutting their grass, wintertime not shoveling their sidewalk. And if you remember, it's probably 2-3 years ago, we enacted a nuisance ordinance. So if Joe Culler's not cutting his grass, I go out there once, I give him a warning. Second time I'm cutting his grass, I charge him for it. Third time I start ticketing him and cutting his grass and charging him.
Okay.
So it's a great deal for,
So we have some of those procedures in for like grass cutting, snow removal, some of those things. This is trying to do that same thing for property maintenance, which is a lot larger of a code and a more broad problem with a lot more nuance.
Got it. Thank you, Mayor.
So,
Thank you.
so some of this is just procedural, what happens if we, how to deliver it and what happens if it's not delivered. We do have that orders to correct can be appealed, because it's an administrative action. You need to be able to appeal it for the administratively. I will be bringing ordinance updates to clean up some of the things after, assuming this gets adopted. I'll be bringing ordinance changes probably 2 meetings from now to clean up who can enforce the code, the administrative procedures, that type of thing. But before biting that off, I wanted to make sure that this was adopted by the council. So there is an ability to appeal the order. So if we say you're in violation because of X, Y, and Z, they can appeal that if they disagree. We are going to calendar it and inspect ideally within 3 days of the correction date being completed. One big change that we are looking to enact is that if there's a violation, so not on the initial inspection, because there's not necessarily a violation there, but if there's a violation and we issue an order to correct, we would charge for reinspection. So in order to, if we have to go out and inspect, it's time out of our building inspector's day, it's time out of the planning and zoning administrator's day, we would charge an inspection fee. That's fairly standard in these property maintenance issues. It's offsetting the city's costs.
How much is that fee, Ian?
we have to bring that forward. We're looking somewhere between $100 and $300. That would not be on the bond schedule, so it would truly be what we set it at, not like with citations where it's $100 plus all of the court fees. If the property owner is making a good faith effort, we can extend up to 120 days. That would have to be agreed to in writing, and if there is an extension, you know, again, with some nuance there, but if it's an inspection and they haven't complied and we have to go out a second time, we would charge a reinspection fee at that point. If they either didn't comply the first time and didn't make any progress, or progress stops with the extension, we would issue a citation under the municipal code. That's kind of where we've stopped now. We're kind of short-circuiting the process from what we've been doing, which is when we issue that citation, we're also going to send a letter at that time that says, hey, if you come into compliance, the prosecuting attorney is certainly going to take that into account and whether they should dismiss the ticket at your court date. So please, you got 45 days, 60 days to come into compliance there. But also, after this citation, we're not going to issue you any further notices. We're just going to move forward if you're not in compliance after this ticket is processed. So no more warnings, we're just gonna start moving forward with enforcement. We would do a follow-up inspection approximately 45 days after the initial citation date. That's gonna depend on when the municipal court date is. Those are usually between 60 and 90 days out, depending. That's when they would appear at the pretrial with Tim down here in the basement. We would inspect based on when that's gonna happen. So 45 days if it's gonna be 60 days out, a little bit longer if it's 90 days out. We aren't gonna do anything more while that's winding the way through the process, or while that citation is going through the process. They have that, that's their kind of second chance, second grace period to do it. They can get it dismissed with just court costs, cool. After that, the goal is going to be kind of to really push the issue. And so at that point, we would either issue a complex citation, which means we can issue daily fines for noncompliance, or we could go to court for injunctive relief. But either way, if they're in noncompliance after that citation, we don't have to go through this whole process all over again. We can just start enforcement if they're still in noncompliance. And then once it's corrected, we would close the case and, you know, close the matter in the system.
Any questions?
I know you said this is supposed to be like an advisory kind of
Yep.
policy, but just pointing out that in section 9, it says staff shall create a reminder in their Outlook calendar, and it says they shall inspect
Okay.
within 3 days, so.
Yep,
it might
I'll
not-
correct that. I don't mind the shall for the Outlook calendar thing because that's
Yeah.
a internal
But the
policy thing.
shall, the shall inspect probably.
correct.
Not great.
Anything else?
And just as referring to Outlook calendar, I mean, I'm assuming this is a policy that you want to go on for some amount of time, so Outlook calendar might not be the medium.
I don't think we'd need to come back to council if we change calendaring programs.
Well,
We could
I
adjust
was just
that.
wondering if you just wanted to even change the
Yeah.
wording to.
We can make that a little more.
Current
yeah.
tracking.
Create a reminder
medium.
within the calendar system.
go.
Yeah. Yep.
Go ahead.
One other, sorry, this is
Nope.
nitpicky. In section 12, it says if progress stops for any inexcusable reason, do we want to say like whether it's excusable is up to our discretion?
So I think the enforcing authority has that discretion. I mean, there's always discretion, and case law is pretty solid that, you know, the municipality, the state, the police department has the discretion to enforce their own laws. So that's one of the places where discretion is gonna come into it is, you know, are there extenuating circumstances or not? And, you know,
Just a
Anything else?
couple of points.
Yep.
Thank you. In section 2, you have this thing where you have 2 complaints from the public. I'm not quite following that, because if I have a complaint from one of my constituents, I bring it to Steve and say, hey, this
Yep.
individual has a problem. You guys are gonna wait till somebody else complains before you go and focus on that, so I'm not quite sure where 2 or 3 or 5 or what that number needs to be.
So the Two complaint requirement is for the people who come in and hand in the laundry list of all the neighborhood problems. And so, clearly there are many, many cases where somebody, one or many people call the alderperson and say, hey, such and such is happening in the neighborhood. And when that gets escalated to staff, they look into it. We always have we always have the ability to act on our own volition, and typically things that get escalated by the alderpersons get put on that track. The two complaint thing is largely to address the, like I said, the self-policing of these issues.
Got it. And then my second follow-up is on this issue with, hey, you know what, we're gonna have a date that they put on their reminder of the calendar to look at the inspection, right? And
Yep.
they have to go out there and every inspection after. So if there's a non-compliance from somebody that doesn't comply to this, how do they know they've met it before the inspection? Because you'll come out there, inspect, and you're like, no, you missed this or you missed that. Now, he's gonna be charged for him to come to another compliance. Isn't that kind of an iterative process, or is it quite clear what they need to correct and how?
Yep, the order to correct is going to be pretty specific.
Got it.
It's going to say, these are the things you're in violation of, and this is what you need to do to correct it. Again, clearly there's some discretion there. If I know you're coming back out, they're coming back out on July 15th to inspect, and I call and say, hey, look, here's the documentation. I have my contractor coming on August 1st. Please just put the inspection off until after that, so I don't have to pay for a second inspection. Clearly, there's discretion with that documentation to say, hey, we're gonna push that out. And that goes to the shall inspect language, because, again, we always have discretion to work within, work with people, but this is kind of pushing it a little bit to say, hey, we're not gonna coddle people for months and years on end at this stage, because we just have the same frequent flyers over and over on these issues.
Got it. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ian.
Is that it?
That is all. So
Okay.
you now have a process to approve, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
So
Yep,
we would
okay,
look
if
for a
that,
motion to adopt.
Okay, right. So what we're looking for then is a motion to adopt the property maintenance enforcement procedure policy
With a couple of those grammatical changes.
Yep.
with all changes, Alderperson Savage, second by Alderperson Webb.
Motion by Alderperson Savage, seconded by Alderperson Webb, approving the adoption of the property maintenance enforcement procedure policy.
Any further discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. For adjournment, Alderperson Fulop, second by Alderperson Savage.
Motion by Alderperson Fulop, seconded by Alderperson Savage, to adjourn at 7:48 PM.
For adjournment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We stand adjourned.